I promise that when this is all over, and you realize that I said when this is all over, like it's, the Curse of Nibiru and, the Mystery Incorporated are trying to destroy the evil entity. Think of Dragon Rider as the guilty pleasure as best you can. Think of we're really interested in focusing on. But think of this as the work, the burden, but what needs to be done. The crystal sarcophagus that needs to be destroyed. And the only way that it can be destroyed is to fully read it. Oh, well, now it's starting to sound like a mystery. Now I'm getting hooked. So I will reward you if you can prove to me that you can balance. Now, I would have said different things had it been August of 2018, but my experiences have proven otherwise. So, I want you all to turn and I will begin to read it. Now, I recall there was a scene in a series of unfortunate events. Remember the scene when Klaus and Violet Baudelaire and Sunny as well went into that big room with all the files, and they said, "Oh, think of how many files there are to read." The guy was like, "No, you don't read the files. You just open it up, glance at it, and then put it away and never see it again, and just have them stored there." It's kind of a similar thing. I will hush. So that's what we're going to be doing. I might get excited about it, I might get interested in, but what happens in this room stays in this room. And I know that doesn't sound like me. I know that it's going to make you want to do the opposite. But that is the way for you to commit, to focus. And you're wondering, why am I doing this? Well, I don't feel like keeping it in. I feel like, so that I can feel more content, is by showing it and releasing it out to you. That's it. That's why we're doing this. Because to pull things in, to bottle emotions in, no, you don't do that. Rather have the truth that's, as bad as it is, than a lie to, please me, or, go on whatever lines you can come up with it. So, skip through the preface. You don't need to worry about the preface. Now, on chapter 1, how many pages does it last? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20. And it goes up to Appy's lucky number. So, I'm just gonna be right back. So remember, this is not going to be the kind of thing that you're going to, sit down and really get into and read. It's not why we do this. Oh, the smoky auto. Okay, how many minutes? So only understanding what we basically need to know, barely. barely. You know, do not let, oh, it's a classic, oh, it's a famous book. Don't let that pull you in. Think of, just pretend that this is any other type of book. Only think about what it really is about, the story of it. Now, I believe in commitment, but there are things that are legitimately good that you would taste and that you would like, and that maybe you can come back. That's amazing if you would do that, because you don't know until you try. You don't finish something if you don't like it. I know that if I don't like something, then unless there was nothing else, unless I was, starving, then I would eat it. But that's extreme because I'm a very, very open person. I'm just saying that. I'm not saying that all of you aren't, but I'm an open individual. I have a pretty darn wide palette in most things I like. Based off of the quality, not so much the quantity, but I do believe that if something's good, it should be in plentiful amount, and, vice versa. So, I think that I got it across. So, don't feel guilty that we're doing this way. Don't feel, oh, like I missed out on an opportunity. Oh, don't worry about that. Only focus on what you're interested in. I'm not saying completely disregard, because you need to do it. I believe that reading should be independent and it should be a choice. The problem is that they're not doing it right because of all the other things that you need to do, and it drives the wedge, and based off of how many priorities, it's still in a background requirement. So, I think that you understand where I'm coming from. So, not really investing in this and kind of wanting to read it, but express it. Really, makes you want to read the other thing. I want you to read this, having the slightest form of open-mindedness, just barely doing it, finding, little details that would be similar, and read it like you're expressing it. But when you're reading this, I want you to want, not to, and to read the other thing. That's the whole point. And if you should like it, that's great. But do not get carried away. I'm just saying it's great, but time, and then after you're done, start something else. Don't get carried away. But still, fellowship, but... So, I think that you get what I'm saying. So, anyway. And even prior, I have discovered the same exact thing before I even taught. Just a year before it happened. Good luck. Now, here it goes. So, it says, in my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice about how I've been running over in my mind ever since. When you're reading it, like, you don't get so much into it. You don't absorb it. Not into it. So whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, he told me, just remember that all the people in the world haven't had the advantages that you've had. So that's a good piece of advice. You might be somebody who lives in a mansion, for example. You might have a lot of money. There might be somebody else that is not so fortunate, like Santiago. And the old man in the sea, think of that. So, have the humility. Again, expression, drawing connections to express this thing. So I want you to think about that. You didn't say anymore, but we've always been unusually communicative in a reserved way, and I understood that he meant a great deal more than that. In consequence, I'm inclined. So remember that this, I believe. Remember this, I believe, where you looked at different essays and maybe it came from family. In consequence, I'm inclined to reserve all judgments, a habit that has opened up many curious natures to me, and also made me the victim of not a few veteran bores. The abnormal mind is quick to detect and attach itself, that's good motivational, to this quality when it appears in a normal person. And so it came about that in college I was unjustly accused of being a politician because I was privy to the secret griefs of wild, unknown men. Most of the confidences were unsought. Frequently I have feigned sleep, preoccupation, or hostile levity, which I realized by some unmistakable signs that an intimate revelation was quivering on the horizon. For the intimate revelations of young men, or at least the terms, and this is the preface, in which they express them, are usually plagiaristic and marred by obvious suppressors. Reserving judgment is a matter of infinite hope. I am still a little afraid of missing something if I forgot that. As my father snobbishly suggested, and I snobbishly repeat, a sense of the fundamental decencies is penciled out unequally at birth. A lot to process. Preface. Did Dragon Rider have that? Now that's the thing that I'm talking about. Did it have that at the beginning? No, it didn't. It didn't have a preface that had, it's not as so dense, I wouldn't choose novels that are dense like that, So, as you can see, this is dense and, boring. Again. And after boasting this way of my tolerance, I come to the admission that it has a limit. Conduct may be founded on the hard rock or the wet marshes, but after a certain point, I don't care what it's founded on. Is anybody having the motivation to read Dragon Rider? Okay, well, I'll keep going and then you'll raise your hands. When I came back from the East last autumn, I felt that I wanted the world to be in uniform and at a sort of moral attention forever. I wanted no more righteous exertions with privileged glimpses into the human heart. Only Gatsby, the man who gives his name to this book, was exempt from my reaction. Gatsby, who represented everything for which I have an unaffected scorn. If personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about him, some heightened sensitivity to the promises of life, and as if he were related to one of those intricate machines that register earthquakes 10,000 miles away. The responsiveness had nothing to do with that flabby irresponsibility which is dignified under the name of creative temperament. This is not really creative. It was an extraordinary gift for hope. A romantic readiness such as I have never found in any other person, and which it is not likely I shall ever find again. No, Gatsby turned out all right in the end. It is what preyed on Gatsby. What foul dust floated in the wake of his dreams that temporarily closed out the interest in the abortive sorrows and short-winded elations of men. When you're reading Dragon Rider, was there passages like that where you have to really think about what he's trying to say? I don't really think so. So, I have no idea what he's talking about. No idea. And guess what? I could kill us. This is the whole point, is that you could kill us, including myself. So, how many pages do we have up? Let's see here. Okay. We're going to stop. Maybe you can go over that and try to detect what the heck that was. Okay. Moving on. My family have been prominent, well-to-do people in this middle western city for 3 generations. The Carraways are something of a clan, and we have a tradition that we're descended from the Dukes of Buccleuch. But the actual founder of my line was my grandfather's brother, who came here at 51, sent a substitute to the Civil War, and started the wholesome hardware business that my father carries on today. I never saw this great uncle, but I'm supposed to look like him, with special reference to the rather hard-boiled painting that hangs in Father's offices. I graduated from New Haven in 1915, and I could be like the teacher in that, movie that was big. Kyle. Well, I'm sure that you know what kind of teacher. I'm sure that you know what I'm talking about. Which thing would you rather read? And again, I will say it again. It should be an independent reading or reading in general. Let's see. So I decided to go east and learn the bond business. Everybody I knew was in the bond business, so I suppose it could support one more single man. All my aunts and uncles talked it over, so if they were choosing a prep school for me, and finally said, why, yes, with very grave, hesitant faces, Father agreed to finance me for a year, and after various delays, I came in permanently, I thought, in the spring of 22. Oh, here's something else. Try to find connections to Dragon Rider. The practical thing was to find rooms in the city, but it was a warm season, and I had just left the country of wide lawns and friendly trees. So when a young man at the office suggested that we take a house together in a commuting town, it sounded like a great idea. He found the house, a weather-beaten cardboard bungalow at $80 a month. But at the last minute the firm ordered him to Washington, and I went out to the country alone. I had a dog, or at least I had him for a few days until he ran away. And an old Dodge and a Finnish woman who made my bed and cooked breakfast and muttered Finnish wisdom to herself over the electric stove. It was lonely for a day or so until one morning some man, more recently arrived than I, stopped me on the road. "How do you get to West Egg Village and don't feel guilty about it?" He asked helplessly. I told him, and as I walked on, I was lonely no longer. I was a guide, a pathfinder, an original settler. He had casually conferred on me the freedom of the neighborhood. And so, with the sunshine and the great bursts of leaves growing on the trees, just as things grew in fast movies, I had that familiar conviction that life is blowing over again with the summer. There was so much to read for one thing, besides this, and so much fine health to be pulled down out of the young breath-given ale. I bought a dozen volumes on banking and credit and investment securities, and they stood on my shelf in red and gold like new money from the mint, promising to unfold the shining secrets that only Meadows and Morgan and Mussiness knew. Those were the only things that he had the interest in. And I had the high intention of reading many other books besides. I was rather literary in college. One year I wrote a series of Barry Solomon and obvious reports for the Yale News. And now I was going to bring back all such things into my life and become again that most limited of all specialities, the well-rounded man. This isn't just an epigram. Life is much more successfully looked at from a single window, after all. Single window? I have to disagree. Life is, no, okay. Life is, okay, you know what? That's rich. That is so rich. That's so rich, because, okay. Now, you need to understand, everybody, that the Old Man and the Sea and the lessons that it taught about, humility, life is not only looked at from one window. When I say one window, focus come in on that one window. In general, however, if you can, have the humility to, to understand that your view is not the only view of the world, then it vastly improves. And, don't take it from me, take it from Greta. But life is viewed through, different views, because there's not one person, there's not one interest, there's not one culture or cuisine, there's not one language. That's wrong. Wrong. Life is viewed best from all different kinds of viewpoints, all different kinds of perspectives and all those things. Basically black and white. Isn't that a little bit boring after a while? I think so. It was a matter of chance that I should have rented a house in one of those strangest communities in North America. It was on that slender righteous island which extends itself due east of New York, and where they are, among other natural curiosities, two unusual land formations. 20 miles from the city, a pair of enormous New Havens, identical in contour and separated only by a courtless bay, just out into the most domesticated body of salt water in the Western Hemisphere, the great wet barnyard of Long Island Sound. They are not perfect ovals like the New Haven in the Columbus story. Okay, that's so. Okay. Shape, yes. egg. So it is again. So, but the physical resemblance must be, so this is the difference I'm talking about, must be a source of perpetual confusion to the gulls that fly overhead, to the wingness of more arresting phenomenon, to their dissimilarity in every particular shape and size. I lived in West Haven, the less fashionable of the two, though this is a more superficial tag to express the bizarre and not a little sinister contrast between them. So does this make you want to read the other book? So anyway, the house was at the very tip of the egg, metaphorically speaking, only 50 yards from the stone and squeezed between two huge places that rented for 12 or 15,000 a season. The one on my right was a colossal affair by any standard. It was a factual invitation of some Hôtel de Ville in Normandy, with a tower on one side, spanking new under a thin beard of raw ivy, and a marble swimming pool and more than 40 acres of lawn and garden. It was Gatsby's mansion, or rather, as I didn't know Mr. Gatsby, it was a mansion inhabited by a gentleman of that name. My own house was an eyesore, but it was a small eyesore and it had been overlooked. So I had a view of the water, a partial view of my neighbor's lawn, and the consoling proximity of millionaires, all for $80 a month. Wouldn't you rather be flying on a dragon? Across the Courtesy Bay, the white palaces of fashionable East Haven glittered along the water, and the history of the summer really begins on that evening I drove over there to have dinner with the Tom Buchanan family. Daisy was my second cousin once removed, and I'd known Tom at college. All just after the war, I spent 2 days with them in Chicago. Her husband, among various physical accomplishments, had been one of the most powerful ends that ever played footballs in New Haven. A national figure in a way. One of those men who reach such an extent, we'll get into it, not for this though, an acute limited excellence at 21 that everything afterwards, saviors of anticlimax. His family was enormously wealthy. Even in college, his freedom with money was a matter for reproach, but now he'd left Chicago and come east, in a fashion that rather took your breath away. For instance, he brought down a string of polo ponies from Lake Forest. It was hard to realize that a man in my own generation was wealthy enough to do that. Polo ponies? What are polos? I know what polio is. What are polos? Can somebody tell me what that is? No one? Let's keep going. Why they came east, I don't know. They had spent a year in France, but no particular reason, and then drifted here, and then unrestfully whenever people played polo. Oh, that's what it is. I don't know what game that is. Okay, sir. Okay. I don't know what kind of game that is. And were rich together. This was a permanent move, and Daisy over the telephone, but I didn't believe it. I had no sight into Daisy's heart, but I felt that Tom would drift on forever, seeing a little wistfully into the dramatic turbulence of some irrecoverable football game. You're wondering why I was reading it fast. We'll talk about it. We will talk about it. But in moderation. So, we'll get back to it tomorrow. We'll get back to it tomorrow and continue. And we'll start a little bit earlier. Thank you, everybody.